Uh,
I don't know why.
a golf course is a great place to social distance.
Hmm.
Mr. Handy, I'm still looking for him. McCaffrey, are you here? McCaffrey, yeah, you're here.
Sure, I'm here.
Make sure your video's on, Mr. Toller. But is Mr. Toller working or something? He's kind of dropped off the radar a little bit. You know? Let's see, Mr. Tomlin.
I work every day. I'm still here.
Where are you working?
KFC and Walmart.
Really?
Yep.
Cool. Can you bring me a
Making that
bucket of
bread.
chicken? Can you bring me a bucket of chicken?
Yeah, just come by. I'll give you.
Wow.
Which one are you at?
I'm at the one on Hull Street.
On Hull?
Yeah.
Like up near Huguenot or near courthouse?
Yeah, near courthouse.
Near where the Wawa is?
Where the Wawa near Rockwell Park.
All right. Yeah, I know where it is.
Yeah.
I'd come by and have you fix me a nice KFC lunch.
Yeah. I'll give you extra pieces of chicken and I'll give you a military discount. I just need to make sure I get an A. We have an agreement?
Yeah, if you can give me a couple dozen buckets of chicken, a couple extra sides, a couple extra biscuits.
I can make something happen.
I like extra crispy.
Oh, yeah. All right. I can make something happen.
Okay. Here we go. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? How's the cereal this morning, Mr. James? Good stuff.
Pretty good.
You eating Fruit Loops?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Cocoa Krispies?
Frosted Flakes.
The milk and Frosted Flakes is unbeatable. So good.
All right. Sounds like we're on the Food Network between KFC and Frosted Flakes. All right. I graded the quiz from Monday. If you turned it in, Mr. Hall, Mr. McCaffrey, Mr. Toller, Mr. Walden. So if you want to turn it in late, I'll give you a few points, not many, because I'm going to share my screen and put the quiz up there, and we're going to talk about it to
Wait, sir, what did I get?
Hey, Blackbaud, sir?
Mr. Gore, you did very poorly. You did a 106.
I feel like Toller. I don't like that.
Toller didn't do it at all, so you beat him.
What did I get?
It's in Blackbaud. Yeah, I think I put him in Blackbaud this morning. I'll tell you if Mr. Daughtry, you want to know what you got? Or knows what he's got. Mr.
Yeah.
Mr. Handy, you know what? You want to know?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Handy was a 100. Mr. Daughtry was a 90.
Yeah.
Was a 94. Okay. So here's the plan. I'm going to put the actual answer key up here. That way I don't have to write everything. Look at it on the whiteboard. And I'm going to talk about a few things to watch out for, because the test is that part, plus you've got either one or two quizzes from the section 61.63 that are a good reference also. And so it's just going to be a combination of all that. Let's see here. Which one I want? That one. That. All right. Give me a second to move things around. See if I can get this a little larger. Okay, so I'm just going to walk through it. So most of it, everybody that took it did pretty darn decently. So there's actually 1 through 4 was talk about binomial approximation of a binomial, which we're going to take that success and failure, that P and Q stuff that we had those big long computations on back 6 or 8 weeks ago, and if they meet the test, we're going to force them into a normal distribution if they meet the test. And the test is n times P and n times Q both have to be greater than or equal to 5. So the first one and was 46.75 and 8.25. And the second was 18.7 and 66.3, both greater than 5. So those are fine. And N times P, if you want to recall, N times P also gives you what? Gives you the mean, all right? N times P always gives you the mean, okay? Just keep that in mind in case you would happen to see that again. Let's see, numbers 3 and 4 were both no's. Let's see here. I'm sorry. I'm gonna scoot this up. Let me do a couple things here. All my drawings. All right. So 3 and 4 are both no's because we got 2 of them that were less than 5. And the only thing you can manipulate to get them to become yeses is you can increase the n. Right? So whatever this, if you're asked to solve what would a viable n would be, just remember the formula n times p has to be greater than or equal to 5. So remember back to your Algebra 1, Algebra 2 days, we can move that p over to this side of the equation. I'm going to scratch this guy out and just solve for the new n. Now, if it's q, just move q over underneath the 5 and solve. Any questions on that? All right. Let me clear. Give me a second. I'm going to keep rolling. All right. A couple things to keep in mind. When it says normal approximation, that means we're taking binomial, right? All right. So, and remember, here we're just looking for a particular value of 6. And remember, we're measuring area under the curve. Well, a straight line of 6 doesn't really have a significant amount of area to measure. And remember, there's that 0.5 continuity factor. So if it's just a straight value, we're actually going to go from 5.5 to 6.5. And if you think in terms of a histogram, that gets all those bars to touch, which makes it continuous, right? Which gets it into normal standard curves, whereas binomials are discrete, they're counted, and that's how we kind of wedge this thing into a standard normal curve. So if it's just 6 or no matter if it's, well, so we're going to use 6.5, we got to calculate 2 z-scores and 5.5. If you put that larger one on the top, all right, a couple of you guys got some weird answers for not only on this one, but on some where your standard deviation was off. And be careful, it's probably your calculator. If you just type in n times p times q under the radical, it's not going to, sometimes, unless you use parentheses in the appropriate place, your calculator doesn't know PEMDAS and order of operations. So my suggestion is once you calculate n times p, as in here, 15 times 0.6, then take that value of 9 and multiply it times q, which is 0.4, and then take the square root of that. All right. There's on several quizzes your standard deviation was off. So there's the two z-scores for 6, 5, and 5, 5. All right. And then there's the corresponding values out of the table. On the test, I think some of you guys must be using a different table. It's only going to 3 decimal places versus 4. I'd prefer, actually, in the instructions of the test, it says use 2 decimal places for z-scores in z notation and 4 decimal places for probability, all right? So I attached a new table with the test. You've got that as a reference or resource. And so here we just subtracted the 0.0329 from the 0.0951, and it was 0.0622. Now, if you had like 0.0611 or 0.0612, I'm not going to squabble over thousandths of a point, okay? As long as you're relatively close. Now, if you come up with a mess up on tenths or a significant difference on hundredths, you may lose a little bit of points. Any questions on number 5? Makes sense. Hopefully you've got your quiz there in front of you. That's the one problem with this way of teaching is I can't return the quizzes to you with corrections on there. That's where you don't get really decent feedback of what you did well and maybe what you didn't do so well. All right, so this one is x is less than negative or less than or equal to 8. And again, it's a normal approximation, so we've got to, you know, if it says that, that's a binomial. It's referring to a binomial going into a standard normal curve. So remember, you're going to have to use that continuity factor. So we're going this way with it, right? Which is, we love that because that's right off the table. Again, that same formula, n times p is 6.3, which also equals our mean. And then we multiply that 6.3 times 0.65 and then take the square root. So there's our standard deviation. Since we're going this way with it, we'll forget the 0.5 correction factor. We've got to, we're going to use 8.5 instead of 8, right? We can't use 7.5 because then we just lost 1/2 of a column there, right? So that wouldn't make sense. So here's the z-score calculation, all right? This is not necessary. So as the z-score was 1.009, if you look at the table, it's 0.8621. And I don't have to do this stuff here that I started to do because it's to the left of the line and we're good to go. Questions on that guy? All right, everybody makes sense. I'll go a little faster if I'm being repetitive. All right. On the back side, you had a lung cancer situation. Now, some of you messed up on the what the N value was. It says if lung cancer is caught in early stages, 6-year survival rate is 70%. So there's our P right there, right? What's the probability that 160 or more from a group of 250? There's N. There's my N right there. There's my P. So make sure you correctly interpret the problem and correctly assign the right values for N and P, all right? So there it is, there's N times P, which equaled 175. So that's also our mean. I always like to draw a picture just because it you kind of visualize what you're being asked to calculate. It says what's probably 160 or more. So we know we're looking at this side of the curve, right? So there's that 0.5 continuity factor, right? So we're going to go 159. We're going to go opposite of what we're being asked to calculate. So that's why I used the 159.5. A lot of you had a different standard deviation than I had. Some of you had 5 point something or other. Let's look here. Not sure where. Again, it might be in your sequence of calculating. So I just take that 175 here, multiply it times 0.3, and then I'd take the square root of that value of 175 times 0.3. All right, so here's the math. A little mistake there that I scratched out. And there's the corresponding value off the table. Disregard this. This should be 0.0162 there. I should have corrected that before I loaded it up. And so our final value is 0.9838. I don't know if this place didn't come through. So about 98% are going to survive. That's pretty good, pretty significant results. And that's that area there that I've added the blue lines. Questions? Anybody lost, confused? I can clear up. All right. Let's see. Last two. All right. Let's see. So let's see. There's our P, which would be 0.75, right? And there is our N. Again, some people I think kind of messed up on what the N and P was. All right, so there's our mean of 112.5. It's just 0.75 times 150. And I took the 112.5 and multiplied it times 0.25 and then took the square root. So there's our standard deviation. Says, what's the probability that less than 120 out of the 150 employed adult users use the internet? This is probably kind of old data because it's probably close to 99.9%. So there's our mean on the curve. This is we're asked to calculate over here on the to the left of that value of 120. Since we're going left, we've got to add a 0.5. We're going less than, so we got to add. Subtract that from the mean by the standard deviation. There's our z-score. There's the value out of the table. That's a thing because the table set up with all the area to the left of a z-score. Questions on that guy? All right. Let's see. All right, there's the answers for, and I think everybody picked up anywhere from 4 to 8 points on those. I'll just let, you can read them as clear as me. Actually, most everybody got anywhere from 4 to 8 of the, excuse me, of the points there. All right, questions? All right, let me give you, the test is loaded. Let's talk about one thing here that, looking at the test. When you get Z with a value in here, and it's typically going to be the 2 decimal places. All right. That, if you recall, is Z notation, Z or Z of alpha. We've got a couple questions on that. All right. Z of alpha, or Z notation, remember that was kind of a little thing they threw in at the end, is always referring to the area to the right of the curve. Okay, so if I say this area right here, and it's only going to be the 2 decimal places as opposed to 4, that area right there, the Z notation of that, and again, so we don't get confused with a Z-score. Here's actually that's the mean right there. Let's say the Z is right here we're talking about. So the Z notation, again, Z notation, you always remember it has a parentheses. Regular Z-scores do not. That answer would be 0.23. Okay. Now, let me give you another example just to make sure we're operating off the same sheet of music. All right, we're doing Z notation again. Here's the mean. All right. And I give you, I'm just going to keep the math. I'm going to keep the math simple. Sorry for the sloppy handwriting. And I ask you to give me Z alpha or Z notation of this. What would go in those parentheses there? Focusing on, it's asking you for the area to the right. That would be Z parentheses what? This is 0.7000. What would go in? Say it again.
0.3.
Yeah, 0.30, okay? Give me Z notation in 2 decimal places. Does that make sense? Here's it. Let me give you one more. Throw you a little bit of a curveball, make you think. Let's see here. And this area here is 0.250. Yeah, that's all right. No, I don't want to do that. Let me change that. Let's make it, let's say it's 0.10. I'm just going to keep the math simple, 0, 0. All right. So This area is 0.1, this area in here is 0.100. So what would be Z notation for that guy? 2 decimal places. Really what you're going to give me is a 2 decimal place of this area right here. So we know this is 0.5, all right? We know this is 0.1, so that's 0.66. What's left? 0.40, right? That makes sense? I need to do another one like that, or are we good?
We're good.
Good? Okay. Let me just see if there's anything else I need to clarify. Now, if I ask for a Z-score, not Z notation, there will be no parentheses. Let's do this. Oops, that should not be there. Why do that? Here's the mean. Here's the. Okay. Sorry about the writing. Let me bring this way over here. Okay, now this is Z-score, not Z notation. There's no parentheses. All right, if this area right in here comprises 0.20000, all right, and I'm asking you for the Z-score of this. Just remember, all right, and it's between these lines here, all right? So I'm going to subtract this 0.200 from 0.5, which I think is going to give me 0.280, right? Which is this area here, which is the area I need to get my answer for the Z-score. So then I'm going to go to the table and look for 0.2800, and that'll give me the corresponding Z-score. 0.2800 is going to be in the interior part of the table. The Z-score is going to be down that left column for the whole number and the tenths, and then the hundredths are across the top of that. Does that make sense? Do I need to go over that anymore? Any confusion? All right, let me just take one more look at the test and see if there's anything else. Everything else,
How long is the test?
just a word of caution. If it says normal approximation, that's a binomial. Remember, if it says normal approximation or binomial approximation, all right, anything with approximation, make sure you do the 0.5 correction factor. If it doesn't say anything about normal approximation, or if it just says standard normal curve, you don't need to do that. Don't get the two confused. The answers will be similar, but you'll be off. All right, so one more time, if it says standard normal curve, right, just do it as we've been doing. If it says normal approximation, don't forget that 0.5 correction factor. It's going to go left and right if it's a single value. It's going to go larger if it's asking to the less than or to the left. If it's asking more than, you got to go to the opposite directions, be to the left. I think that's everything. It all should look familiar. It comes from the, it looks like we did 2 quizzes between 6.1 and 6.3, and then you got the 6.4, 6.5 quiz. So take a gander at those quizzes before you sit down and take the test. Like I said, I'd like to give you a little bit of class time to do it so that you could have it done for me by tomorrow. Because sometimes I don't come in on Fridays. I want to be able to grade them over the weekend. All right. I'll be glad to take any other questions. Make sure you read the question. If I say calculate Z or determine Z, I just want the Z-score. You don't need to give me the probability. Just give me the Z-score. All Z-scores, give it to me in round to 2 decimal places. All Z notations are to 2 decimal places. And then the probabilities are all to 4 decimal places. And that reminder is actually on the test. It's probably the only test for the, well, I'm going to say it's definitely going to be the only test for the quarter. We've only got about 3 weeks left with you guys, particularly the seniors. So this will be the one and only test, so you can repair some damages or you can create some damages with it's just because of this increased value. Is there anything else you'd like for me to go over? Anything else you'd like for me to go over? I think I've told you everything. Just take your time with it. Be cautious. Make sure you read the question carefully. I'm always a proponent of circling important stuffs and putting that N or P or Q adjacent to the values. So make sure you understand the question before you dive into solving it. Be careful with your calculator inputs, because I said there's a lot of you, there were a few of you that had different standard deviation values, and I think it's probably because of a TI input and grouping symbols or parentheses, because the TI does have that kind of glitch where it doesn't do order of operations in the same manner that you input them, unless you strategically place parentheses in the right order. If you just type it in, it's going to do it from left to right, not in disregard. If that's order of operations, left to right, that's fine. But if it's not, then you're going to run into a different answer. Questions on anything? It's loaded up there now. I said I'll give you class time to start it. Maybe you can even get it done. It'll probably take you 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes is my guess.
When does it due?
I'd like to have it by 4 o'clock tomorrow, so if I don't come in on Friday, I can print them up before I leave here tomorrow, so I can grade them over the weekend. Monday we'll start chapter 7, which will be the last chapter we dive into. Questions, comments, concerns? If you pull up the test and you run into a problem or snag or question or confusion, check in with me on office hours today or tomorrow from 2 to 2:30. So that's another option for you. Anything I can clear up? I can keep on talking and go do more review if you like, but I think I'm optimistic that you're fairly well prepared and ready to go. I did attach the table because a lot of you guys on your probabilities and errors, several of you on the quiz are rounded to 2 or 3, or actually 3 decimal places. So I'm assuming maybe you're using a different standard normal curve table than what I provided you, that maybe only goes to 3 decimal places as opposed to 4. Is that what's happening? I think that's what's maybe happening. So I attached, if you can print if you got a printer at home, you can print the whole test out. We'll have a new table there for it. If you can't, you're going to use the table you got. It's table 3 in the appendix or index of your textbook. It's called table 3, or hopefully you've got the one that we've been using in class for quite some time. Okay, any questions I can answer? Mr. James, you all right? You didn't kind of conk out on us, did you?
No, I'm okay.
All right, any questions? I'll be glad to answer. Any questions? Okay, good luck on the test. Please, 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 you guys that didn't do the quiz, make sure you submit the tests. Hopefully you can repair the quiz damages for not submitting it. And check in with me today or tomorrow at 2 during office hours if you run into a question that you're stumped on. I'm not going to solve it or work it for you, but I'll give you some some things to think about. All right. Last call for questions. I could test, do well, submit it back to me. It's loaded there, put it in Dropbox. Good luck. Have a good weekend. If I don't see you in office hours, I also have office hours Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. If you want to pick up that extra 10 points, come in and just say hello or ask questions. Otherwise, I will see you next Monday morning at 10. All right. All right, everybody have a good one.